Friedrich Institute, Stockholm. With a round of applause, may I now welcome on stage Ms. Shifalika Panda for the welcome address.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to IDEATE 2022. At the outset, I'd like to thank all my eminent speakers for taking the time to join us today. The 11th edition of IDEATE will discuss India's education landscape post-COVID, focusing on three essential parameters: the National Education Policy 2020, blended pedagogy, and technology infusion. Over the years, starting from the Gurukul Vedic system to contemporary schools, there has been an evolution of India's academic content and teaching methodology. The right to education was introduced in 2010, and it clearly brought about an increase in primary school enrollment. With the national education budget at 4.6% of GDP, it is often cited that India's improved education system is one of the main contributors to its economic development. However, statistics show that there is a lot to be desired when it comes to children's learning outcomes. Half of the primary school-going children, which constitute nearly 50 million children, are not achieving grade-appropriate learning levels. In 2016, the Subramaniam Committee emphasized that we must lay the groundwork for redesigning our education system to serve the country's 300 million plus students. It suggested 6% of GDP be allocated to education, and also called for equitable and inclusive education to enable every child to receive education with the goal of contributing to nation building in their own unique way. It further suggested that teachers gain dignity and autonomy by adapting to quality, control, and accountability. The Union Cabinet then launched the National Education Policy in 2022, replacing a 34-year-old policy. The emphasis is on revamping all aspects of education structure by focusing on curriculum integration, critical thinking, technological intervention, pedagogical framework, skill, local language, and setting a national professional standard for teachers. Unfortunately, the COVID pandemic also hit us in 2020. And instead of taking crucial steps in going forward with the NEP guidelines, the education sector saw an unprecedented challenge on account of school closure. The educators showed resilience and fought back. Education was now being delivered online, irrespective of whether the student came from urban or rural background, government schools, private schools, etc. Students from all over the country adapted to the digital platform, and a massive paradigm shift was thrust upon the education institutions. Teachers upskilled themselves overnight. Lesson plans were tweaked to deliver education online, and technology was now a necessity. However, the learners, especially from rural backgrounds and the underprivileged segment, had their own challenges. Imagine trying to study during a lockdown without a simple smartphone, or, for that matter, not having tech knowledge to download learning material. These were just some hurdles that these families had to face, not to mention while grappling with migration, job loss, and poverty. The pandemic exacerbated equity gaps, and the learning loss was beyond our comprehension. Post-COVID, 35.9% of children in Class 1 and Class 2 entered a school for the first time. There is also an increased demand for government school seats. After such long closures, are the schools equipped to deal with such challenges? On the other hand, imparting education during COVID was also a learning curve that made us wiser. This must be taken into account when we are now going to move forward to implement and adapt to the new education policy, with the objectives of improving quality education, learning outcomes, equity in education, as well as capacity building and digital outreach. Education frameworks must be designed keeping in mind the segment of society respective institutions and organizations serve. The paradigm shift has started. However, it needs a robust framework where stakeholders collectively get together to bridge the gaps in the education system and reach the last mile equitably. Be it private or government schools, NGOs or corporates, everyone must align with the goal of literacy as it plays a significant role in balancing the socio-economic framework of our country. Today, at IDEATE 2022, we are privileged to deliberate with eminent speakers on the best way to successfully implement the national education policy post the pandemic and share best practices to collectively move towards the learning outcomes and literacy outreach. I would like to begin today's event with a thought-provoking perspective held by Swami Vivekananda. Education is not about the amount of information we put in our brain. It is a life-building, man-making assimilation of ideas to develop an imperishable nation. And thus, Vivekananda asserted that by means of education, character is formed, strength of mind is increased, and intellect is expanded, thus making an individual learned and self-reliant. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for this insightful message. Dear audience, we have a special speaker for today, Dr. Rukmini Banerjee. She will be joining us over virtual presence. So it's an honor to introduce Dr. Rukmini Banerjee, CEO, Pratham Foundation. Dr. Rukmini Banerjee was trained as an economist at St. Stephen's College and Delhi School of Economics. She was a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford University and completed her PhD at the University of Chicago in 1991. Dr. Rukmini returned to India in 1996 and joined Pratham. Over the years, she has worked extensively in Pratham's education programs in rural and urban areas. Dr. Rukmini led Pratham's research and assessment efforts, including the Annual Status of Education Report, popularly known as ASER. In 2008, Dr. Rukmini received the Maulana Abdul Kalam Siksha Puraskar by Government of Bihar, India. She was the first recipient of this award. In 2021, Dr. Rukmini was awarded the IDEATE Prize for Education Development. May I now, with a round of applause, invite Ms. Dr. Rukmini Banerjee to deliver the special address, please.
Thank you so much. Namaste to everybody. And first of all, my apologies that I'm not there in person. I already had a plan to be in Maharashtra. I'm in rural Aurangabad. And so when I was approached by the organizers, I said I would be very happy to join if they could connect me virtually. But still, my apologies, face-to-face is far superior to being on a Zoom call. I think that the topic that has been chosen for today's discussion is an extremely important one. And we see a lot of discussion about, how to cope with our current reality and how to bring in this important topics. And I'm so happy that there is such a large and distinguished audience together here to discuss this. To kick off this discussion, I thought it would be a good idea to put some of the thoughts that we in Pratham have been grappling with. And I'm hoping that the discussion that follows will give us also some new insights and directions of what we can do. So as the previous speaker outlined, I think two things have happened in the last couple of years. One, of course, is the pandemic, and then this prolonged school closure. And the second is the arrival of the new education policy at the end of July 2020. Now, the pandemic, I think, disrupted many things. In some ways, disruption is a bad word. and in some ways, disruption also denotes a way in which we can rethink some new things. And so, at our level, in Pratham, we work directly with communities across the country, and we also work in close partnership with many state governments. And in both of those kinds of work, I think the pandemic taught us many new lessons. Particularly a key lesson, whether you are working in the community or with government, is I think a lot more doors opened for partnership. And I welcome that because it is really in times of difficulty that people reach out to each other to see what resources and what help we can extend to each other. So, in that spirit, a couple of the key lessons that we learned during the pandemic, I would like to put in front of you. Uh, we were at the time, as the schools shut down and the lockdown began, we had a presence in our direct work in about 10,000 villages and urban slums. And the natural reaction that everybody had, including us, was as things began to lock down, how do we reach and stay connected to the families and the students and the schools with which we were connected before? Now, technologically speaking, at Pratham, we had certain parts of our organization which were digitally much more advanced. But the bulk of the work we did was face to face on a daily basis with children, for which we did not use much technology. And so it was, as my previous speaker said, a huge acceleration of actually just reaching and communicating that we all did. And I think in that we are now no different from anybody else. But a few lessons that we learned. Firstly, for the kind of children and families that we worked with, being online in any continuous way was out of the question. What we were able to do after a contact, using the phones that children had at home, many of these phones were not smartphones. And so I think that the biggest adventure that we had in this school closure period was really how to use low tech for widespread impact, and how can that impact be made as deep as possible. And I think this is a journey that was a very interesting one. So first thing was that in across all of these villages, establishing a network of phones when you're not there in person. It took us about 2 to 3 weeks to be able to have about 3 lakh phone numbers that we could use to reach every village that we were connected to, within the village, every mohalla or pada or hamlet, and then within each pada, how do we reach as many children as possible or children's families. Once that network was set up, we began to send SMS messages. Now, we all know that the SMS has many, many constraints, one of which is that you can only have 160 characters. And so what is it that you can send each family in a 160 character text message that can help the family to engage with their children? Our main goal at the time was really engagement. There was so much disruption going on, so much fear and worry, that we felt at least the minimum we could do from sitting far away would be to just have parents and children and family members do a few activities together, which may hopefully keep them engaged with each other. I won't even go far as to say that we were trying to do anything significant with learning. And we realized that it is possible, even though we are a very large country, or even within our own small organization, we were reaching large numbers of people. It is possible to have individual contact. And I think some of the best teachers in our government schools did exactly that. First, established an individual human interaction between the two sides, teacher and parents, or in our case, us and the parents. Through this interaction, we were sending these SMS messages, and once a week we would phone to find out how the family was and whether what we were sending was useful or not. And through this two-way interaction over a long period of time, I have to say many things changed. Firstly, as one of my colleagues said, हम लोग बहुत दूर हो गए थे, but दूरी की वजह से बहुत पास भी हो गए. We had become very far because we were not meeting each other every day. But because of this structured daily interaction, in many ways we became much closer. So we were able to see that even with a very low cost, low tech way, it is possible to reach and be connected to many, many, many thousands of children. the method that we use in our teaching is often called teaching at the right level. So I think what we learned during the pandemic is reaching at the right level. If you reach people at the level at which they need you, then I think the interaction can be much more productive. I want to give you a very simple example. It doesn't sound very high tech at all. But in this 160 characters, what kind of messages can be sent? So one kind of message, for example, was make different kinds of triangles. Make triangles which have equal sides, which have two equal sides, one different side, all three sides being different, and find out the names from them. The reaction we got from the parents is when you sent messages like this, the parents said, textbook mein dekh lo. Ye to textbook wali cheez hai. In comparison, if you sent a message like, how many buckets of water did you use today? How many buckets for washing? How many for cleaning? How many for bathing? We were flooded with phone calls from parents saying, "Aaj hamare ghar mein pani nahi aaya. Today water has not come. Can I give you this answer tomorrow?" Or why buckets? Why not drums? Why not jugs? And so even from the interaction, you could see that this was something that was being discussed in the home. So the second big lesson was that if you open up two-way channels of listening, and in funny ways, when we are face to face, we are supposedly listening. But I think this phone call to each family once a week made us realize that in addition to engagement, we got a lot of feedback from families about how we could improve our content. And just carrying forth on this SMS line, we, by the end of the pandemic, by the time we had reached early part of this year, we were curious that if you are sending out so many messages all the time, does that affect learning in any way? And so we did a small kind of a randomized control mini study with about 1,000 villages, where in 300 villages, we did not do anything new. 300 villages, we sent a month of these daily messages to children of government schools who were in class 3, 4, and 5, and these were related to math. And then in 300 villages, we did that and we made a phone call a week. I was not frankly expecting to see much in terms of learning outcomes, but we were surprised that the last intervention with the phone call and the SMS message actually showed one level increase in learning even in 1 month. So these are all to say that I think the pandemic forced us to do certain things that perhaps we were not prepared to do. But those who did it in a structured way and systematically and built each month from the experience of the previous month and did a little bit of sort of evaluation of where it was going, even a simple thing like an SMS a day could make a difference. It does not take the place of schools or teachers or normal functioning, but it can add a little supplemental value. I give this example to you only to say that I think there have been lessons learned from the pandemic, different ways in different places, that need to be integrated in our daily functioning as we move forward. Our ASAR report is normally a physical, actual household survey, but in 2020 September and September 2021, we did a round of national phone surveys where we learned several things from talking to large sample of households across the country. One was that compared to the past, every family, whether poorly educated or well educated, was engaging much more in children's learning than ever before. Which means, and I think that the topic of our conversation today is blended pedagogy. And everybody assumes that this blended pedagogy is referring to technology. But I look at blended in a different way and pedagogy in a different way. I think the pandemic has taught us that there is support available from families. You can blend the school and the home in productive ways if you know how to involve parents in the learning of our children. The second thing we noticed is that almost 95% of families have phones, but the smartphone may vary considerably from state to state, district to district, family to family. And the access of children and women to the smartphones is a lot lower because a smartphone is usually with the person who's earning the livelihood and who's often away from home. So the assumption that because you have a smartphone at home, it is easily available and can be used, I think has to be really looked at with some caution. But the fact that a feature phone is everywhere and often in the hands of women, I think has to be built in, because if mothers are a channel through which we want to send and connect with the schools, then that is certainly available. Now, I want to quickly just come to national education policy, because in my mind, the release of the national education policy right in the middle of a lockdown actually was I think, a very positive thing. Because in Hindi, we call comma alp viram. And I think the entire education system was, in a way, with a comma, waiting for many things to happen, which meant that it gave many people a chance to digest the policy and to think about its implications both at a micro as well as at a macro level. As I see the policy, and you must remember that our name of our organization is Pratham. Pratham means primary. We've spent 25 years working with pre-primary and primary. So my comments on the education policy is largely coming from a pre-primary and primary point of view. The policy, as we all know, is about 50, 60 pages. But I think the most important box, according to me, in the policy is on page 7 or 8, where they say in very, very strong terms that if foundational literacy and numeracy is not achieved by class 3 and within the next 5-6 years, then the rest of the policy is irrelevant. And to me, I think this is a very important statement. It says that if we don't build the foundations of our children, and as the previous speaker said, many children have gone into first and second this year into our school with no prior schooling, with no prior preschooling, and therefore the need to build the foundations in a much stronger way is even more critical than ever before. And so the national policy also divides up our education system into several chunks. A key new chunk is age 3 to age 8, which is seen as a continuum, even though we know that children actually come to first standard only at age 5 or 6. But the integration of the early years, the early childhood years along with the primary years, I think is a very, very important new step and needs to be taken seriously by us all. So as we look ahead, I think there is this early childhood to early years, the foundational stage, a 5-year continuum that we need to look at as a progression of provision, a progression of curriculum, a progression of support. And within this progression and the foundational skills, I think is a breadth of skills. It's not only literacy and numeracy, but I think is a whole host of cognitive, socio-emotional skills, many of which can be actually given both at home and in school and in the community. And in a thousand ways, I think that by providing this platform of the foundational stage, the new education policy is inviting us all, whoever we may be, whether we are corporates, whether we are NGOs, whether we are government, whether we are families, whether we are media, to say that this is our opportunity to build our country. We have 25 million children roughly in each age group, 25 million 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, and so on. So if I take the age range from 3 to 8, it's 150 million roughly people with whom, if we do our best in the next 5 to 6 years, the rest of this century for India will be taken care of. So as we go forward in the deliberations in this conference, I would just like to say that the national education policy gives us a fantastic springboard and a platform to build this basic foundation from which we can then build many high buildings and go to great heights. But if we don't do the base work well, then none of those will be possible. So I'd like to just thank you for listening to me, for inviting me to this conference, and I look forward to a very productive discussion, both today as well as in months to come, to say that I think this is an achievable goal. Nipun Bharat is an achievable goal, but it will be achieved only if all of society gets together to support the work that needs to be done. Thank you, and namaste.
Wow, that was a great statement, saying blended pedagogy is about blending parents and students to the education system, and from teaching at all levels to reaching at all levels. Now with this, we move ahead to our panel discussion, the much awaited session. So may I now call our moderator for this event, Ms. Shifalika Panda, to please come on stage, followed by the distinguished panelists, please. With a big round of applause, please, let's welcome the panelists on stage. Dr. Nilima Chopra, Professor Hrishikesh Senapati, Dr. Y. Suresh Reddy, and Mr. Madhukar Banuri. Dear audience, I consider it to be a great privilege and honor to introduce the esteemed panelists we have for IDEATE 2022. Professor Hrishikesh Senapati, ex-director NCERT. Professor Senapati is a professor of education and possesses over 30 years of experience. He served as former director of NCERT from 2015 to 2020. He played a significant role in providing relevant inputs for drafting the National Education Policy 2020 of India. He introduced art-integrated learning approach as a cross-cutting pedagogy to the Mega Teacher Development Program. Professor Senapati was also awarded Honorary Lit degree by Ravinsha University, Cuttack, Odisha. Welcome as a panelist, sir. I'd like to introduce now Mr. Madhukar Banuri, founder and director of Leadership for Equity. Also, the director of the Center for Learning Resources, coalition of leading education organizations based in Pune that helps strengthen government school systems and communities to deliver quality education at scale. With more than 15 years of experience in the education sector and corporate sector, Mr. Madhukar started his education journey as a Teach for India Fellow from the first cohort in 2009. He holds an engineering degree from Bipf and started his career as a project manager with Larsen & Toubro, Mumbai. Mr. Madhukar is a 2019 Ashoka Fellow and 2015 Acumen Fellow. He has also been a part of national and state level government committees and supports young education organizations in advisory capacity. Welcome on board, sir. Dr. Nilima Chopra, lead early childhood care and development from HCL Foundation. Postgraduate in child development and PhD in education, involved in capacity building, advocacy and research in education and early childhood development. She serves as the primary program resource for training teachers in school and emotional learning using digital interactive technologies. She has published her work in numerous peer-reviewed publications, is UNESCO's MGIEP's SEL Skills Coordinator. Welcome, Dr. Nilima. We now have our last panelist on board, Dr. Y. Suresh Reddy, lead CSR and director of SRF Foundation. He holds a PhD in public administration from SV University, Tirupati, and has 24 years of experience in associating with academic, government, not-for-profit, and corporate foundations. Dr. Reddy is a specialist in school education, vocational skills, and CSR. As the head of SRF Foundation, he built a team of 152 professionals and 9 CSR champions supported by 145 CSR Council members spread across 12 states in the country. We now begin the panel discussion, and I switch over to moderator Ms. Shifalika Panda to take over the session, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishwaprabha. So very warm welcome to our panelists again. And thank you to Dr. Banerjee for, those wonderful words where she put it so appropriately, that the new policy is inviting us all towards a cause of nation building, and that it is a springboard and a platform, and we all need to do a lot of base work to get things going where they need to be. So let me move into our deliberations today regarding the merits of the NEP, the challenges in implementation with regard to acceptance and effectiveness of blended pedagogy, and capacity building of educators, as well as the contemporary subject skills and the role of the digital mode. So let me start with Professor Senapati. You were instrumental in providing inputs for the new education policy. What, sir, are your thoughts in developing the NEP 2020, given that this change has come after 3 decades?
Thank you, madam. Good morning, everybody. This is a good opportunity to share my experience on NEP. So far as the process is concerned, this NEP has taken more than 5 years. I remember I joined NCRT as director in November 20, it's November 15, and before that this policy was initiated. I completed my tenure in 20 November, but before that this policy was released. That means it took more than 5 years. And NCRT is responsible for school education, and we conducted 63 deliberations all over the country to take the opinion of the different stakeholders, students, parents, teachers, and also we submitted our report to the committee. And after that also we are actively involved in helping the committee in formulation of this policy. So far as the idea, that means why this policy was formulated, because we have completed more than 34 years, because the last policy was in the year 1986. Then after 34 years, we formulated this policy. And if you want to know what is the vision of the policy, why this policy was formulated, in the vision statement it is clearly mentioned. Because what is happening in our country, our value, there is deterioration in value, and we are alienating from our culture. Our children are not connected to their roots. If you see the vision of the policy, it has mentioned that focus of this policy is on Indian ethos. That means our children should be connected to their roots. They should know their culture, they should know their tradition, they should know their value system. So that is the most important recommendation of the policy that has been reflected in the vision of the policy. If we can connect our children to their roots, that means they will be not only good citizen of this country, they will be good human being. And ultimately they will be global citizen, because that is there in our philosophy. All the time we say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Development Commission has highlighted this was one of the pillars that learning to live together. That is that from the ancient time we have been propagating this, and that is a part of our culture. Our children should know. We say Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. That means our children should know this philosophy. That is it has been recommended that they should be connected to their roots, so that we can create a very equitable, vibrant knowledge society. Because a lot of disparity, lot of diversity in our country. Children coming from rural area, children are coming from tribal area, slum, deprived section, and disadvantaged group. And every child should get right type of education, so that we can create a very equitable, vibrant knowledge society. That has been reflected in the vision of the policy. Second part, why this policy? Because all the time, you see, we are fighting for rights. We are conscious of our rights, but we are not conscious of our duties and responsibilities. And it has been reflected in the policy that you will find that our children should know their roles and responsibilities. Our job as a teacher is to make our children responsible for their duties, so that they can become good citizens of this country and will not fight for the rights. This is the second part. That means we have to make our children conscious of the fundamental duties and constitutional values, constitutional obligation. Third part, that in the vision it has been mentioned that focus is on sustainable development and global citizenship. Because why this policy? Because we cannot live in isolation. India is a country, we are going to be the youngest country in the world. And economically also we are much ahead. But at the same time, we cannot live in isolation. That is why we have to develop global citizenship. And policy has reflected that, and in the vision it has been mentioned that we should put focus on sustainable development, because we have already signed that goal 4, that we all know that inclusive and equitable education for all. And that is why global citizenship is important, and that is there in the vision of the policy. Ultimately, just I would like to say that our children should be good citizen, good human being, as well as global citizen. That is the
Thank you.
focus of the policy.
Thank you, Professor Senapati. So you pointed out very nicely how the policy is not only about the academic part of it, but about the development of a human being in its entirety. Dr. Reddy, let me come to you. You run schools both in urban and rural landscapes of the country. How easy do you think it's going to be to implement this policy, and what are the challenges that you see?
Thank you, Shafalika. When you say NEP is a policy at national level, is a route map or directions or guidelines given by the government of India to the various stakeholders in the system. And education being a concurrent subject, so if you see in education system also, at central government level, there is Kendriya Vidyalayas, Navodaya Vidyalayas. It is a CBSE board and Navodaya board, and they are managing the schools. At a state level, state education boards are there. Plus, NGOs like Bansidharila Panda Foundation or SRF Foundation or Bharati, different foundations are there. They have support in the government schools, or they have their own schools also. And the corporates are there, and they are also coming forward to support the education system. And of course, the parents are there. These are different stakeholders have the responsibility taking it forward, the national education policy, to make it happen on the ground. So when you say our experience SRF Foundation point of view, so the things are happening at different levels by different players. But NGOs like us, when you do work with the different state education departments, choosing a set of government schools in different project locations, and to try to bring the transformation in the system by way of bringing the change there. For example, education policy talks about the integration of the preschool to the primary school. That is one of the things there. So how to work there? So we have the Anganwadi system is there. Then we have the preschool schools set up with the education department. Some schools they are there. And Anganwadi workers, they are more kind of the health and nutrition and little bit about the preschool education that got exposed. And how to bring them to along with the health and nutrition, the preschool education, how we can empower, equip them to align with the national education policy, the foundation literacy numeracy we were talking about, that integration, that is one focus we have to work there. At the same time, the preschool education teachers are there. They are the people. It's not about making the children ready for the school readiness. It is about how the socio-emotional, physical, cognitive development in the children, how they can bring in, for the holistic development of children at the pre-primary level, 3 to 8 years old of age group, where the 85% of the growth happens there. So that is one thing we have to focus. And the class 1 and 2, as per new education policy, the 5 years, 3 and 4 years kind of thing. And this preschool of 3 years and class 1 and 2, these 5 years of the schooling, the literacy numeracy, how we can make the primary school teachers are equipped with the skills and the competencies to provide the experiential learning opportunities for the children. So not only for the children, even the teachers themselves also how to experience the teacher education also. That is something, as an organization we do, developing the manuals and setting up the reading corners, printed classrooms, and giving the training to the teachers on hands-on experience. Yesterday I was discussing with one of my colleagues here in Bhubaneswar. Sometimes I heard that training means not bringing the people like in a big hall and having the morning to evening session and giving the orientation, training is over, they go back and implement kind of thing. It won't happen like that. Actually, they have to experience the experiential learning as a part of teacher training education, and they go back and they can follow the children there. At the same time, NAP talks about introducing of the vocational skills at the high school level. So here we are talking about, government takes some more time to come up with structural changes, adjustments, at a state level, so do the things there. But as an NGO, so we have the flexibility to go to the education department saying that we want to make our children, educators ready for the future. Down the line, next 5 years of time. So where we equip them with the future skills like how to use the robotics or the CNC mills or the coding or design thinking process using the sensors. So it's a beyond the school curriculum, how to work for the future, where we have tie-up with the education department, setting up the labs, training the educators to teach children. So we're creating, that is the opportunity we got and different parts of the country, and we show to the rest of the world. So if you want to do, this is the way. Right. Like that.
So, you pointed out a very important issue about teacher skills and how we can get the teachers to go to experiential learning. So, Mr. Banuri, let me take this to you. you mentioned that one of the challenges is talent. That's something that I know you believe in. And you've expressed your views on the lack of ownership and lack of ability within a system which hinders every child's right to quality education. What, in your opinion, is an efficient way to achieve capacity building and leadership?
Thank you, Shefalika. I think really interesting sort of inputs from the panelists, and also Rukmini ji started off as well. So I think, like, if I sort of zoom out on the entire policy per se, key lever, sorry, I'm going to use a bit of Hindi also just to make sure. I think so I think उसमें key lever ये already mention किया गया है कि बिना शिक्षक के आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते. Teacher is the epitome and like the point of delivery, service delivery. If you look at education, it's the teacher. So we always said, like, one of the key things, जो भी policy शुरू करने से पहले, like at a broad level, and we analyze the policy might say 100 things, but I think what is the administrative feasibility, the financial viability, because end of the day, even I think the whole spectrum of continuum, 3 to 6 years का आपको mainstream में करना है, the exchequer needs to invest about 30 to 40,000 crores a year for the next 5 years across India. अगर आपको आंगनवाड़ी system को भी mandatory करना है under right to education. So question comes in, like, who's going to pay for it, right? So at a meta level, money, financial feasibility, the political willingness, a lot of these issues still exist. But I think नीचे के level पे जब आप आओगे, teachers को कितनी proximity के साथ हम समझ रहे हैं उनको, before even we reel out, actually the difference makes there. Because no matter what is a policy, जब तक शिक्षक और एक बच्चे के बीच में classroom instruction interaction change नहीं होता है, no matter what beautiful policy we write, it's not going to change. One simple thing that we constantly use is कि जो भी solution आप लेके आ रहे हो, I call it the 40 rule. Can we think of a 40-year-old teacher who has to travel 40 minutes to teach a class of 40 children in 40 degrees heat for 40 minutes? If you think कि ये जो भी आपका solution है, if it is able to take care of that teacher, not a teacher की जो engineer हमारे जैसे engineer बन के शिक्षक बन गए ऐसे नहीं, but I think जो शिक्षक rural tribal areas से आ रहे हैं उनके लिए जब तक हम solutions create नहीं करते तब तक policy. So I think how close you are to the problem is really where all the solutions come, and it need not come from a Delhi, Bombay, or that even Bhubaneswar. It needs to come from people within the communities. So that's, I think, what is a big thing that NEP to be successful.
Thank you. That was very well put. I think the 40-minute rule is a good one. But that also brings the focus to, you know, what Dr. Banerjee also mentioned about it is a slow process. It's an individual human interaction. Every little step moves forward. Dr. Chopra, let me come to you and ask you, you have a lot of experience in early childhood development. How do you see bridging this gap, getting the teachers to understand the students and bringing in these nuances of the NEP?
Thank you, Shefalika. I think the speakers before me have also touched upon this, and a very important part where we see technology as a big enabler. And I'm from HCL Foundation. HCL Foundation is the CSR arm of HCL Tech, which is a technology company. So we really see technology as a big enabler. Having said that, we also realize that there are certain challenges. You know, we have seen these challenges going forward in the past also, going forward also we are seeing. And I would like to put them in 3 main points. One is the question of access. So we have, we know that various studies have been done, and we know from our experiences that access has been a big issue. Access to technology, access to internet, access to devices. And so that is one major issue. And very closely related to it is the question of equity. So, when we talk about access, we're also talking about equity wherein children from rural areas, children from remote areas, children from low-income families, what is their access and how can we leverage technology to help children from these communities, from the marginalized communities. Also bringing in a very important fact that, technology also needs to look at, technology in education also needs to look at other aspects like, or the other subsets of population, for example, children with special needs. How are we catering? How are we talking about technology for the, children with different needs? Do we have something in plan for that? Children from different linguistic backgrounds. Everybody is not very comfortable with English or Hindi or the regional languages. So, is this technology, is it talking about the importance of bringing native languages or, teaching learning in the native languages? So this is related to equity. Another equity issue which has been highlighted is also gender. We know that boys are, over girls have preference to use of devices. So definitely these are two important factors to be considered. And then again, very closely related to this is the question of quality. Here I would say, a very important aspect is what Madhukar talked about, building the capacities of teachers. So what is the kind of teacher training that we have? It is one thing, when the pandemic struck and we all had to use technology and move to online platforms and remote instructions, तो हम लोग सब थोड़ा सा struggle किए, थोड़ा सा हमें मुश्किल हुई, लेकिन हमने अपना किसी तरह से we learned different skills, we upskilled ourselves, and we used various learning platforms. But here I would like to say that there is also, we need to recognize that on Zoom, taking a class, like हम जैसे क्लास लेते हैं, एक इन पर्सन क्लास लेते हैं, वो हम Zoom पे ले रहे हैं, या हमने अपने रिकॉर्डेड सेशंस डाल दिए on some learning platform. वो एक तरीका है ऑनलाइन क्लासेस लेने का और on using technology. But there is another way where we engage children, we engage the learners, we make it fun for them. It is more interactive. So using various digital tools that are available. So we have things like Mentimeter, we have Jamboards, we have word clouds, we have quizzes which can be used. तो क्या हम वो भी उस तरह की भी चीजें ला रहे हैं अपने using technology? Because that will actually be the leveraging technology for education, I feel. And that is where Shifalika, your question that how do we engage the learners better is by adapting these, engaging and fun and interactive digital tools in our teaching learning process.
So sorry,
again, training of teachers. Yeah.
If I may ask you, you talked about, the various tools that are required. What, according to you, is the minimum compulsory IT infrastructure and human resource requirements for a last mile delivery of digital education?
So, I think that's a very difficult question to answer. Because see, we understand that, technology is cost intensive. And definitely there are, we need to explore low tech options. We have to have alternate solutions, like Rukmini also mentioned previously about SMSs, phone calls, and personal connect is a very important part. Personal connect, she emphasized on the personal connect. So how do we build that personal connect, and how do we incorporate that personal connect is also an important thing. But like I said, technology is cost intensive, at least as of now. Maybe in future, once we have these possible solutions, we'll have more low cost interventions related to technology. But when we are talking about cost, or we are budgeting cost for technology in education, I would just like to request the policy makers, decision makers, or funders, CSR funders like SRF Academy, HCL Foundation, we need to be very cognizant of that the technology is not only one-time investment. There is a repetitive investment that has to be made. So one-time installing some laptops or projectors is not sufficient. We need to cost the budget of renewed licensing. We need to cost the budget of ongoing professional development for teachers, because technology, it's upgraded. So how do we account for that? Here, again, so these ongoing things have to be accounted for, and a very important component which I feel which can help is the ownership of the technology. If the school is the unit where the technology is, then the school takes the ownership of that technology. Teachers, principals, students who are using the technology take ownership of the technology, of the infrastructure that has been created. So these are a few things that can help.
Right. So, of course, we've talked about, how technology can be used and the challenges in technology, not to mention the financing that goes into technology. Yes, of course.
When you talk about the technology usage for the educational purpose, so we have to say there are three players. One is the school, the teacher, the child. And among these three, the teachers are more equipped with the technology as in today's context because of the smartphone. So 4 or 5 years back, the smartphone was very luxurious and very few teachers used to have that. Now almost all 95% of the teachers working in the government system, they're having the smartphones. Any kind of smartphone-based interventions for the teacher education point of view, they have the accessibility, they have this is a personal phone, they have the internet facility kind of thing, and it's 24/7 with them, and there is no limitation of using technology by teacher. When come to the school and the child, when you do at school level, any technology interventions we do, when the schools were shut 500 days during the COVID situation, though technology was there in the school, but not in use. Schools were closed. At that point of time, technology with the children. So where only 15 to 20% of children of the studying in government schools, they have the access to the technology of their parents' phone, but not the remaining 80%. So that is the issue during the COVID situation. Now the COVID has gone, schools are reopened. At the school level, if we want to use the technology for the educational purpose, there are different models are there. If you want to do it a large scale kind of thing, what should be the cost-effective solution point of view? So one of the things we're talking about, the big TV screen of 44 inches, 46 inches kind of thing, one tab with the teacher, and empower the teacher. He can source the content from different sources by mirroring the tab with the TV screen, and we source content from the net or the app or a pen drive or different sources, you can use it. So this is the lowest model kind of thing. Or otherwise you have digital classroom, smart boards kind of thing. This is expensive kind. Depending upon how you are doing that, what scale you are doing that, one can look at technical solutions.
You mentioned a very good point, empower the teacher. Empower the teacher. Now I would like to broaden that perspective, not just from a digital point of view, but also there is the whole talk about a standardized teacher training, which is the National Professional Standard for Teachers pointed out in the policy. How do you see this capacity building taking place for the teachers? Because it requires a lot of time, it requires a lot of resources. So
teachers' point of view, I said India is a vast country, So we look at it two different perspectives. One is the pre-service teacher training program. Second one is the in-service teacher training program. When you say pre-service, mostly offered by the institutions of the BEd colleges, DEd colleges, they are offering these courses. And if you want to transform the Indian education system down the line next 20 years, 30 years kind of thing, we should have a very good qualitative teacher education program online with the national education policy. Whatever you are talking about today, it should be taken care by these institutions. And NEP talks about by 2030, we have to shift all our current teacher education institutions to the multidisciplinary universities, where the pre-service teacher trainees can pursue the 4-year BEd degree or a DEd degree, with sociology or history or philosophy or psychology or science or maths or any other subjects with B.Ed degree kind of thing, then they're professionally well qualified to fit into the current needs of the society. That is the pre-service education we're talking about. So that is, we look at differently. Until 2030, we're talking about, now we're 2022. Till 8 years of time is there, we have to prepare ourselves national level. When come to the in-service training program, they're already there. They're already there, and they are there of different age groups of 25 years to 58 years of age group teachers. And they are at different levels of, if anybody wants to do the teacher capacity building of the existing teachers kind of thing, the teacher educators or any other institutions going there, how they are well equipped, and the teachers can listen to them, So if you are master, if you are good enough or better than those people, they can listen to you. Otherwise, just doing things and going there and organizing the things, it doesn't make any sense, neither for the receivers, neither for the givers kind of thing. And also the teachers of this age group, the teachers of up to 35 years, they are very enthusiastic of using the technology for the teaching learning process. So once upon a time, technology means learning out the MS Office, Excel, PowerPoint, those things. Now, technology means how to use the technology for the teaching learning process. So where the young teachers are much more proactive and enthusiastic, we have to create the opportunities, equip the schools with the platform and the access to given to them. And the teachers of 50 plus, बहुत कुछ कर लिया हम लोग, देख चुका है. So अभी उसको जरूरत है.
So essentially you're saying there needs to be acceptance amongst the teachers to be able to go forward with this.
It is there. We have to see a differential strategy, and we should have the patience dealing with these teachers and kind of thing. And not only technology point of view, and the teaching learning process of experiential learning. And talking about the cooperative learning together. Not the teacher is the only source of learning for the children. So how teacher can be a facilitator and facilitate engaging the children, the parents, local community together, making a difference kind of thing. So it is a big area one has to look at it. Right. And National Professional Standards for Education, the draft is out from the NCTE and asking the feedback from the stakeholders from across the country. And so the document will be ready. We're talking about. And they're talking about, you follow the better system for the recruitment and the promotion based on the merit, and a clear-cut path towards the education administrator or the teacher educator point of view, and levels of the teachers talking about. So it takes time from the system to make it happen.
Right.
Let us see.
Very briefly, I'll also add to what Dr. Reddy was saying. So we can use, for capacity building of teachers, we can use and leverage the technology also. So UGC we know, and we have different Swayam platform is there, Diksha platform is there. So that start has, it has been initiated where technology is being used to build the capacity of teachers. So we need to further add on to it. Here also another important component is the creation of e-content. So if we want teachers to be using, innovative content, we cannot always, right now what happens is most of the content that is available is from the Western context. Where is the e-content related to our context, to the Indian context, to the state-specific content? So that also we need to really, innovation and research needs to happen in terms of creating the relevant content which teachers can use.
Right. So while we talk about, the creation of e-content and the capacity building and several tools that are there, Mr. Banuri, tell us about, your teacher resource app.
So, one of the things when we had started off thinking through what can be done for the teachers to support them better, leveraging technology, an idea was formed back in 2016-17 called Mitra, Maharashtra In-Service Teacher Resource App. Again, this was a name given by a teacher, not by us. So I think the idea always was कि जो भी करना है teachers के साथ मिलके करना है. Like in fact the Mitra app and the way it was conceptualized कि वो app में क्या दिखेगा, वो web page में क्या दिखेगा, all of this was done by a group of teachers who work with the government in SCRT and then with the NIC to sort of develop it. But that sort of laid a foundation to what was taken up at Diksha another couple of years ahead with IDEATE Foundation and other organizations involved. But the learning came from there, like whatever you do for the teachers need to be rooted in really what the teachers need. Let it be. So हमको लगा कि teachers को अच्छा lesson plans चाहिए, ये चाहिए था, बहुत कुछ training components चाहिए, तो हमने बोला let's start with LMS, ये करेंगे वो करेंगे. टीचर्स ने बोला ऐसा सब कुछ नहीं चाहिए. कल जो हम पढ़ाने वाले हैं ये 4 टॉपिक्स में ना आप हमें एक्टिविटीज दे दो बस. That is more than enough. So I think these kind of things of, I mean, all of us obviously, in terms of, there's this concept that Peter Senge talks about systems thinking called illusion of broken system. जो सिस्टम के बाहर है हमको ही लगता है कि सिस्टम टूटा हुआ है. We always think कि system is broken, but people inside the system don't feel that, right? And when I talk about the system, I'm talking about the government हो, school systems हो वगैरह. So the approach to teacher training या शिक्षकों के साथ काम करना has always been कि चलो हम आपको train करेंगे, and training is very misused also nowadays with in fact, the more and more, so we work with tier 4 states and roughly about 2.5 lakh to 3 lakh teachers through the state government projects. And in fact, very close to here, Andhra state government के साथ, World Bank के साथ हम काम कर रहे हैं. Almost 2 lakh teachers है पूरे state में. And wherever we have seen कि teachers से पहले पूछो उनको क्या चाहिए, it shows dramatically different results on what we think teachers need and what the teachers think, right? You can always feel कि अच्छा teachers को ये need है, but is there demand? So how do you differentiate between the need and demand of teachers is something that is very, very critical. So I feel that sort of is the basis for anything that we do with teachers. But EdTech के बात में, even for teacher, I think Nilima ji ने already बोला है, but I think the way technology was used for all of these elements and the way EdTech also emerged over the last 5 years, unfortunately it was more technology than education. Let it be for the children or for the teachers. So I think how do we balance out the education element in the whole EdTech atmosphere is a big need. And of course online learning, ये सारी चीजों में enough research says कि it is not working anymore. And now with all the issues that are happening in EdTech field, we are going back to the same brick and mortar. So teacher का role तो कभी निकाल ही नहीं सकते. So I think I just wanted to highlight that.
Sure. So you made a very good point that now suddenly it's more tech than education. So let's take this conversation back to education. Let's take it back to, you know, the whole concept of the value system, the concept of integrated learning, experiential learning, blended pedagogy. So Professor Senapati, if I may ask you, there is a part which in the framework that talks about the pedagogical framework for early child education up to the age of 8, which needs to be developed by NCERT. But is it only that content up to the age of 8? Because how do you feel the current textbooks of NCERT are going to do justice to this changed curriculum? So will the textbooks need to change now?
Thank you. Very challenging question. Just I will give you the background, because the textbook, the existing textbook, what our students are using now all over the country, that was developed based on the National Curriculum Framework, developed in 2005. And National Curriculum Framework 2005 was developed keeping in view the latest pedagogy that you might be knowing, that is constructivist pedagogy. So it is mostly child-centered or learner-centered pedagogy, where we give more opportunity to the students. It is not teacher-dominated, it is student-centered or learner-centered. And we completed the development of textbook, I think 2008 and 9, because we started in 2006. It took around 4 years, because we have around 300 textbooks. So it took around 4 years, 3 to 4 years to complete the textbook. And then we provided training to the teachers and conducted some research study on some big states like UP. And what we found that in our textbooks, you will find before 2005 textbook and after 2005 textbook, you will find change. In textbook, we have given many box items. The purpose of giving box item is that the student will be involved in different activities, and teacher will not deliver the lecture inside the classroom. Teacher will conduct different activities. It may be project, a different type of activities, so the students will be engaged. they will be involved, they will be active. Our ultimate goal is to make our learner active. That was the intention. And we did that. We provided training to the teacher. But when we conducted some research study, we found there is no change in the process of classroom. There is no change. What was going on? That same thing. Because we conducted large-scale survey and we came to the conclusion that there is no change in the process of classroom in most of the cases. But now, after NEP, that means now our curriculum is going to be competency-based. And we are going to introduce many new subjects. Because what is being taught now, and now what we are in 21st century, and now we have to introduce many new subjects that has been recommended in NEP. It may be coding, it may be machine learning, blockchain, from technological point of view, many new subjects are going to be introduced, and it is going to be flexible. And keeping in view that there is need of bringing out change in the textbook, because we have to make it competency based. When our textbooks were developed before, that means 2009, and after that in 2017, we came out with the learning outcome. We developed learning outcome from class 1 to class 8 first, then for the secondary level. And now learning outcomes are with us. And policy has recommended it will be competency based and it will be flexible. Many new subjects are going to be introduced. And vocational education is going to be an integral part of general education from class 6 onwards. And pedagogy, that means if you see the pedagogical aspect, that it is going to be, we are going to follow experiential learning, art integrated learning, sport integrated learning, ICT integrated learning, storytelling based pedagogy, and students will come to school without school bag some days. So that means keeping in view all these, we have to bring about change in the textbook, no doubt about that. And it should be relevant, and that is why what is going on now. Now we are developing national curriculum framework for school education. Already that elementary stage, that for early childhood education and care, it is already released. And keeping in view this, will come out with the textbook for the elementary stage, that foundation stage. Then once the school education curriculum is ready, then we will come out with a new textbook. So and it will be relevant because textbook changes with time. Now time has changed and many new things
the
have
textbook
happened.
also
So
needs
the
to change.
textbook will change because it will be more competency based. But we want our students to develop the basic competencies. They should develop the problem solving ability, critical thinking, creativity, communication skills. So that we can do. But that means textbook will take not only the content, it will take care of the competency as well as the transaction of these, how these activities will be conducted in the classroom process, how the classroom process will be more vibrant. That is our concern. So we are going to come out with a new textbook after this NCF is ready.
So actually, let me take this back a notch. You know, we've talked about contemporary-based learning, new subjects, vocational training, and of course, a lot of talk on the application-based questioning, which is now going to come into the exams, and integrated learning. Dr. Reddy, can you just explain for our audience what really is experiential learning, what really is integrated, teaching, what is blended pedagogy?
Now, if you see the Indian education system, pedagogy, curriculum, training, and all those things are driven by at a macro level. And they are given the route map direction. When you make it happen on the ground, you have to see the ground situation as well. The schools of different levels, layers, the primary or middle, secondary, higher secondary schools, in terms of their readiness or equipment or sophistication, those point of view. So the more the higher the level, they are little better compared to the lower level education system kind of thing. So if you want to bring these things, make it happen on the ground, it should happen proactively by respective state education governments, government departments, to take clear-cut education roadmap, and they can lay the path with the specific timelines, deadlines, next 4 years or 5 years or 3 years. This is what we are going to be achieve in every aspect of the schooling, not just only one element. It never works. If you see, the training program may be more successful, bring the teachers to one place and well organized and done everything. When they go back to the school, the situation in the school totally different. If he or she wants to do whatever the change in the school, it never happens. So unless until address the issues at the school level holistically, as NEP talks about the complex, school complex or school clusters, to optimize the teacher resources, to optimize the infrastructure resources, and to rationalize the schools in the area and kind of thing, and where the leadership at the complex level or school cluster level, and see the education from pre-primary to the up to higher secondary level. This when I'm talking about 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, and look at in a holistic manner, integrated manner kind of thing, how this can be ensured being the head of the school complex or a cluster lead, and how can I integrate the preschool to the primary school? How can I make the preparatory class of 3 to 4, 5, they are progressing with good, strong foundation literacy and numeracy, and they go to the next level. And from 6 to 8, we're talking about where apart from the regular academics, how they can align with the skills and vocational skills, we're talking about these things there. And beyond 8th to the 12th, where the choices for the children, not a stereotype of this is the arts, this is the humanities, or the science, it is the maths or commerce kind of thing. Have the choice for the children to move here and there kind of thing. Again, the structural changes should come there. So where for example, now today's context, the government has aspirational districts in the country, identified some pockets in the country. If they want to bring systematic changes, giving the more focus and priority in those districts, given top priority where everybody can work toward the direction, or respective state government departments, some states like Delhi or Andhra or some other states also, proactively work on the education, like that they can do that. Or individual level, respective district education officers, the kind of thing, they can take lead and try to bring some transformational change there, innovations, welcoming the agencies, NGOs or corporates working in that particular area. You come and innovate, come up with a solution, and we can replicate, scale up the kind of thing. So one has to see, instead of piecemeal, to the big picture and transformational way, and different levels of things there. And we have not only just schools be equipped, and as an education leaders, administrators, how we are equipped to plan doing those things. So otherwise, it will remain there. Things will happen. It happen its own way. But if you want to make things happen the way you want, in much more faster, and leveraging the technology, also one more advantage we're having that, with the clear-cut path route map, you can make a difference.
Right. Mr. Banuri, tell me, how can we achieve equity in education when the landscape is so diverse?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very India problem. Every 50 kilometers our dialect changes. They're very different regions. States operate very differently. Governance is very different. So it's extremely hard from even at an input level for us to see shift in outcomes based on the different demographies, right? I think there's and inequity in India plays out in multiple ways, right? Unlike the Western, where there is maybe color and now with the whole gender issue, here in India it's gender, it's caste, it's religion, it's much more subcaste. Like it's very, very minute. The rich and poor, like it plays out in multiple ways how inequity sort of plays out. But I think what are we learning? Again, this is all coming from experience. I think what are we learning about just how do we ensure is one, you need a very strong buy-in, and this I particularly think there is a need for a political will to be able to say that we are going to spend X plus something on, even if it is like a 10% or 20% of the population sets. Let it be children with special needs. We talk about, I mean, that is often ignored in multiple forums, like transgender, children of multiple other underserved communities. I think बहुत सारे ऐसे communities हैं which contribute to 10 to 15% of the overall children. But we need a commitment saying that if 80% takes X amount, we need to spend X plus Y to be able to do that, and that requires a strong political will. I think that at a fundamental level, that's one. The second, I think, to what Sureshji was saying around this whole point around the role of what I call as middle management, right? people above teachers, even in a government hierarchy, if you see, you have your school leaders, school complex leaders, and you have your CRCs, BRCs, DIETEs, SCRTs. Till the time this group of people is not strengthened and empowered, there is no way that any innovation is going to sustain at a ground level. So how do you sort of focus a lot more on the middle management piece? The third piece of it is just organic, especially from an equity standpoint. Some of these solutions are so localized that there is no way that a simple policy, because historically if you see, the policy in itself is not a sufficient condition. It's a necessary condition, but it's not sufficient. Think of all the reforms that have happened both in all the spheres of life in India. It is always people-driven movement, like people have to lead it. So how do you sort of fix that from a ground-up approach? From a top-down, you obviously need a policy, but I think ground-up, how do you sort of mobilize people? Nipun Bharat is a great example. And Rukmini ji already said, till the time the mothers, the parents are not involved in saying that these are the foundational skills for our children, we are not going to improve the Nipun Bharat thing. So I feel a lot of that, and of course, I think this whole piece around co-creation, whatever we try to do, needs to be done with the end beneficiaries. If it is the children for which we are creating curriculum, let children have a voice in the curriculum. If it is for the teachers, we're building a policy, let teachers come in at a DIETE level, at an SCRT, let them carry a voice in whatever we are trying to do. So I feel from a equity angle, it's some of these pieces, but I think every time we speak about anything to do with the last 3%, everything comes to money. Until the time we don't figure that out, it is not going to happen.
You talked about letting children and teachers have a voice in this process. But how do you go about addressing the issue that there are many teachers who just don't show up in rural schools?
Yeah. I mean, they often say marriage, शादी तो दो चीजों की होती है, दो लोगों की होती है. I say for education, you need to marry three things. There is accountability, there is support, and then there's motivation. If any of these three things miss, let it be teachers, even as individuals, at every level in a government system, in a rural teacher system, you need to have these three things. What comes naturally in a government is accountability. अच्छा teacher time पे नहीं आया तो crack हुए biometric लगवा दो. ये सारी चीजें easy आती है. But with that strong accountability, is there enough support that is given to the teacher? A teacher who is not coming to school clearly means that he or she is not motivated, or he or she is not receiving enough kind of support to be able to come to that school. Accountability रहेगा, उसको भी पता है कि भाई आज स्कूल नहीं आया तो मेरा पगार कटेगा. So it is nothing to do with that. वो डर है ही नहीं, because teachers need to feel like coming to the school, right? Like it's their responsibility, it's my job, I've signed. So the definition of success for a teacher needs to be redefined. It is not to do with कि मुझे गवर्नमेंट नौकरी मिल गया तो मैं 60 साल तक पगार लेके पेंशन रखूंगा. But more to do with मैं 60 साल यहाँ पे हूँ, मेरे जिंदगी में होते हुए इतने सारे बच्चे गड्ढे में जा रहे हैं, ये should be disturb me a lot more. So I think how do you redefine the success is going to be important, but at the same time, accountability needs to lie a lot with the communities also. So I think जब तक parents, SMCs are not holding the school responsible, things are not going to move. It is not going to be हमेशा एक block education officer थोड़ी इतने सारे schools में दिख पाएगा. So again, localized accountability. Some sort of a support, but there's element of motivation. Teachers need to feel that, we are motivated to do this job. So combination of these three is what I feel we need.
प्रोफेसर सेनापति, NEP में एक फोकस आया है वर्नाक्युलर लैंग्वेज पर. एस्पिरेशनली अगर देखा जाए तो सबको ये लगता है कि हमारे गांव में इंग्लिश मीडियम स्कूल आना चाहिए. अब हम बोल रहे हैं क्लास 5 तक आप लोग अपने लोकल लैंग्वेज में, मदर टंग में पढ़िए. आपको ये एक क्लैश नहीं लगता है थॉट प्रोसेस का?
Actually, if we critically examine, language is not important. Learning is important. And that is why what policy has emphasized that at least at the early stage, our children should learn through their mother tongue. Then they can learn any language. Because particularly that is why when we are discussing the textbook, it has been said that we should give local flavor to the textbook. Local flavor means local history, local geography, and their language, their culture, everything should be reflected in the textbook. And if, particularly for example in Odisha, we prepare textbook in Odia language. The children who are coming from tribal area, their mother tongue is different. And we are asking them to learn through Odia language. You forget about English. At least at the early stage, we should provide them education in their mother tongue so that they can learn, they can acquire the basic skills and competency. Then we can expose them to other languages. We are not against English or any other language. Let them learn, but at least at the early stage, they should learn through their mother tongue so that they will be motivated to learn. They will not leave school and they will enjoy learning because everything is in their local context. And we are going to contextualize. That is from that point of view that we should teach them through their mother tongue. Then we should introduce English. By introducing English at the early stage, that means particularly the children who are coming from low socioeconomic stature, they do not know that parents are not supporting them, they will face a lot of difficulties. And what research says that at early stage they can learn many languages easily. So that is why we should promote their mother tongue and we should teach them through mother tongue at the early stage.
So there's obviously a big gap in the thought process when one looks at it either from a micro or a macro level, or if somebody looks at it from an urban or a rural perspective. Because when you look at it from a rural perspective, I completely agree with you that children need support, and that support cannot be achieved in, say, English. So do you see that maybe in 5 to 7 years, there will no longer be this feather in the cap where people say English medium school?
Yes, if we implement this policy in true sense, if we can develop the skills and whatever may be the language, we want our children should be creative. We want our children should be able to develop their problem solving ability, critical thinking. If we can do that, then definitely we can overcome this issue, because people think those who are going to English medium school, they are learning better. It is not like that, because many schools, even our central schools and Navodaya Vidyalayas, they are performing better, and the children are coming from the rural area. If you see the data, then the government schools are performing better. Not that all the time the English medium schools are performing better. You compare the central government schools with the English medium schools, central government schools are always performing better. It is not that we are teaching them everything in English. So that is why that medium issue will not be there, but that is why our focus should be on development of skills and competencies. What policy has recommended, that basic skills and competencies should develop, whatever may be the language. That if we can do that, I think in near future we can overcome this issue.
Right. Dr. Chopra, let me come to you. It's important to focus on the skills. It's important to reach out to the people. Where do you see tech infusion in 5 years in the education space?
So, I think we cannot ignore technology in education. Especially after post-pandemic, we've realized the importance of technology, and we cannot definitely ignore technology in education and the role of technology in education and learning. The important question is, will we be able to overcome the challenges that we are facing as of now? So, like I said, challenges related to access, challenges related to equity, challenges related to quality. Is there enough research being conducted? Because see, technology, we understand, that technology is different and we are very excited about it. Some of us are very excited about use of technology in education. So we are implementing it in our schools, in our learning, in our education. But do we have the data to support that this is also making a difference? And also the data on what is making the difference and how it will make a difference. So that research has to happen. That I think is an important component which will shape where we are in the next 5 years. Also, one needs to understand that the world is changing fast. And today we are doing, as adults, we are doing so many things, using technology. And in the future, this is even going to go, is going to increase our dependency, if you might want to call it for the lack of better word, on technology is increasing day by day. We are using it in every, from paying bills to booking tickets. Everything is technology based. And therefore, the future jobs will also be in some way related to technology. And then, are we preparing our children for that? Do we have that component? Do our children have those skill sets to adjust, to manage, and to excel in that kind of a future? Is the question that we all need to ask as educationists.
Right. So, of course, there is, teaching them about technology, because that is the future, and we need to train them for jobs that don't exist today. Dr. Reddy, tell me, what is your view about teaching at the right level and how to achieve that?
Teaching at right level, once we used to say the minimum levels of learning, the MLL, there is a buzzword we used to talk about. Nowadays, we are not talking that much. And if you say right level in the sense, as I said earlier also, different levels of education, where the NEP is talking about, don't assess the child performance based on the marks, but assess the child based on the qualitative analysis. So for that, whether we have the right assessment systems with us to assess the child, So if you see children in typical rural areas and small towns, villages coming forward kind of thing, mostly they look the education as a means of getting the employment, livelihoods and kind of thing, settling in different professions, either engineering or doctor or a teacher or lawyer, some traditional standard kind of paths, for the children. The parents, they see like that. At the same time, the children those who are living in the cities and the affluent families and kind of thing, for them the opportunities are wide scope of this. They don't see only limited professions and kind of thing, the opportunities. So here the right level of learning of different levels means how we are looking at it and how we are giving the seeing our children. In today's context, almost all the private schools are mushrooming more compared to the government schools, and where those schools are offering the English medium, the supply side and the parental side also, they see their children should have the English medium education kind of thing. They're going. At the same time, in the government system, NEP talks about as I said rightly, the mother tongue. It is not mandatory. It is suggestible kind of thing up to primary level. Even if you think you go beyond 8th class also, mother tongue kind of thing. But since they don't have opportunity, every parent wants his or child should study the English medium today's context. I'm talking about. But in government schools today's situation, they are the nobody's babies. When you say nobody's babies, once upon a time, everybody used to go to government school. In a village setup, in urban setup also. So there used to be a lot of attention on the education system from the community side, especially the parents, either they are belong to the affluent section, socially, economically kind of thing, and there is a teachers are have respected kind of thing. There is attention, control, not control, supervision, support kind of thing, and quality of education was there. And now, those who are the affordable, those who are economically, socially, they are sending kids to the private schools because schools are available. It is affordable for them, and their attention focused to the schools in their own vicinity, neighborhood kind of not there. So the children of less privileged and socio-economically background people, they can send kids to the school, and the teachers in the school, leaders in the school, they are not allowing or entertaining them to come to the school to talk and engage kind of thing. At the same time, those parents also not feel confident or empowered to go there. There's a huge gulf or gap between the school and the community or parents. It is the existing situation now. If if you want to talk about right level of education, who decides there, the school level, Either the teacher who teaching decides, the headmaster. There is no inspection system today. It's not, I don't use the word inspection, the supportive supervision system. Earlier used to be the school inspector used to come to schools and visit the schools, and everybody is being attention, and they want to showcase what they have been, all those things. Today we have some BRCs are here, somebody, they go to school also. Mostly the administrative supervision, they are doing that, but not the pedagogical or curriculum or learning levels and kind of thing. Not much is happening kind of thing. If it happens, it happens. Otherwise, it is not there. So right level of education decided by the parent, if they are affordable, sending to the right kind of school, what they feel, the private school and kind of thing. And here the parents are not able to engage with the nobody's baby is the government school system. If the teacher, whoever is there, good teachers are there. Those were self-motivated teachers. And they are doing the justice also. But not, I'm saying, I can't generalize that everybody is doing that kind of thing. So when you are working with the schools directly on the ground, these are the practical things we have been seeing, observing. And at least at limited level, as an NGO kind of thing. We can't go everywhere. So what are the areas we are doing that? We showcase those things and share with the respective state education departments and district education departments. And it's a possibility of the scaling of the processes, the practices and the innovations, the experiments. So that is how we are trying to influence by way of doing and demonstrating.
But if there is no standardized evaluation process, how exactly are we going to tackle this issue? Because then that really means is there will be a disparity in the level of school you go to. And I'm not saying a private school is necessarily better than a government school. Kendriya Vidyalayas are fabulous. But there is no standardized system. Isn't the NEP trying to bring in a standardized system when it says do a standardized teachers training, have a certain philosophy? They are trying to make sure that everybody across the board gets a similar level of education.
Now, if you see, we are in 2022. When way back 2000, around that time, DPEP and SSA was there. The focus of the education was not the much quality focus education was how to provide access to the children who never been to the school or the school is not closer to them. Set up the schools everywhere and within 1 kilometer radius kind of thing. That was the focus of the education system. That we have reached now. But today's problem is that those schools are not having the children because of their migration to private, because of the birth control, all these reasons. And those structures are there with less children of 20 or 30 children, one teacher or two teachers kind of thing, class 1 to 5 kind of thing. Mushrooming the schools are there. Now the question is that how to rationalize, bring them to the one place and kind of thing, into the good quality education. And also you see in 2010, Right to Education Act came. The Right to Education Act came, whatever the exam systems were there at class 7 and those were abolished, Again, the focus was that how to don't stop the child, either the child is achieved the competency or not achieved the competency. Let the child complete the basic primary elementary education up to class 8. So class on class kind of thing. You have the provision of special training for those children, those who are lagging behind after school hours, before school hours, special focus, but never happened. So right education is there. Now right education is extended from age 3 to 18. It's 16 to 14 to 3 to 18. Again the same situation. So still you have to achieve that level of education what you are having kind of thing. So having the policy, having the guidelines is okay. It is easy to prepare those things. Because sitting in the room and delegations, deliberations and writing document is ready is fine. But how to make it happen on the ground, where you have to put the effort and allocate the resources, provide the enabling environment and support systems and tools and techniques, and make it closely monitoring kind of thing. Unless we don't do those things, fortunately one thing happened now. As a new NEP talking about at a class 3, class 5, class 8, now you can exam.
Yep.
At least you checks and balances kind of thing you can see. Let us see how it happens.
Sure.
We just started.
Mr. Banuri, let me ask you, how do you suggest that various stakeholders collaborate to achieve a greater impact of equity education?
again, I think for organizations in education to collaborate is a very hard thing to do, quite honestly, because being on the non-profit side or an NGO side, it's so hard. Like, we often use that we all need to partner, but NGOs, when it comes to collaboration, NGOs are the worst. Like, we don't come together often and then like say that, we need to do something together. But I think one, how do you move from a transactional based relationship to a trust based relationship? Right now it's very transactional. अच्छा आप हमें resources दे दो, हम कुछ implement करेंगे, या this is the financial agreement ये दो संस्थाओं के बीच में. But I think how do you sort of move to a trust based relationship as saying, you know what, we are in this together, it doesn't matter, ये छोटा ऐसे नहीं कि हम copyright issue है, ये छोटा share कर दिया, we are all here for the benefit of the children. How do you then do that? And it requires years of practice. It's not going to happen overnight. वो alignment होना चाहिए founders level पे, programmatic level पे. But I think how do you move from a transactional to a trust based relationship? The second is also just the patience to see it through. I really think given the new age and world that we're living in, we want everything delivered in 2 minutes or 5 minutes. But how, like education doesn't happen that way. It's like gardening, right? Like you need to nurture children, you need to nurture school systems to be able to deliver that end output. So patience for driving that impact needs to be there, and that needs to be understood from different stakeholders involved. And right now I feel like that is not there. So what that patience also looks like is some sort of compromise. You need to make sure कि अच्छा ये जब तक आंगनवाड़ी में वर्कर नहीं होता है तब तक हम प्रोग्राम ही शुरू नहीं करेंगे, या नहीं तो वो सेविका भी रहना चाहिए, 2 लोग रहना चाहिए, वो यही एरिया में होगा. All of these constraints that we keep, especially if we want to work at scale and some of these things, we need to look at what elements are we ready to and willing to let go. And till the time we don't question ourselves that way, I think it's hard for us to enter into any partnership. And I think the last one is just transparency, right? Like more often than ever, education में जितने भी practices है from all ends, non-profits or CSRs or NGOs, foundations, everyone always talk about successes. We don't talk about failures much. I think how do we, it's a hard challenge. जो 70, 70, 75 years से नहीं हुआ, बच्चे भी नहीं सीख रहे ना. अभी तो देश को आजाद होके 75 years हो गया. We are still tackling, अभी भी निपुण भारत की problem पे ही solve कर रहे हैं. So we need to say कि जो problem हमने काम हाथ लिया है, it's extremely hard. It's going to take a lot of effort and we will fail, but we will learn from it. So I think transparently operating, being vulnerable with each other is important. Government के साथ हो या किसी और के साथ हो, even within foundations. But till the time some of these principles are not there, like it's hard for us to do any partnership. नाम के लिए हो जाएगा, but काम के लिए नहीं होगा.
Okay. So on that note, I think we have sort of deliberated a lot about, the methods of implementing the policy, how the digital outreach is going to help us. Let's open this up to the audience. I'm sure they have a few questions. They've been listening to us. So please raise your hand and somebody will reach out to you with a mic. Yes. Yeah, can you give him a mic, please?
Whether we have protected our sleep cycle of children, first. Second, till date, we have not protected our children from school backwards. NCERT have allowed private publishers in all over India, I am not saying in Odisha, all over India, to put 15 kg, 16 kg bags to class 2, 3, 4 children to take and go to school. Third question, why NCERT not stopped these private books in India, as we have already published 300 more books by NCERT. So I think you are right person to speak more in Odisha as Odia.
What was your first question?
First question, sleep cycle of our kids' sleep cycle.
Okay.
Sir, one student is going to school at 6 a.m. and coming around 2 or 3 p.m. Then he or she will go for sleep around 11 p.m. right now after the COVID. So how we will protect our sleep cycle of children?
Okay. Thank you. Very challenging question. I will answer your last question first, because that load of school bag and the private publisher. Actually, we have tried our best, because you know India is a democratic country. We cannot stop anybody publishing book. That is because at the ministry level we have tried our best. And what practically what happens? We publish book, and our books, the cost wise very low. Within 300 rupees, one can get one set of book. Whereas the private publisher of the book they publish, it is around 3,000. You will find a lot of difference. Our books are subsidized, and we are not a profit-making body. So what happens? The private schools who are running the affiliated to CBSE, because we prepare school for the CBSE, and many states are using our books. So what they do, they get book from the private publisher. If you try to analyze what is the reason, we give only 5% commission. Private publisher gives 60%, 50% commission. So schools are more interested to get the private publisher book. At school level they are doing. NCERT has nothing to do with this. Because we publish book, we recommend, and CBSE also recommend. CBSE has written many times to the schools, but they don't follow, and they encourage the private publisher because they get commission. This is open, that everybody knows. So that is number one. And the first question, the sleep cycle. Actually, what we advise that actually children should be free. We should not give them load, but because of the accommodation problem, that infrastructure, because schools are running two shifts, one morning shift and another afternoon shift. In our KVs, lot of demand, so they want to use the building, and that is why they are running two shifts. But two shifts are not advisable. Children should get sufficient time to sleep. And in our school, we are running 4 schools, NCERT, and our school is from 10 o'clock. It is from 10 to 4. Let children play in the morning, let them be free and do comfortably to the school and do their own work. And we also don't give a lot of homework, that we don't advise, because that NCERT has also published a guideline that at least at the early stage we should not give them homework. That because unnecessarily we are overburdening our children, and they are not getting time to do their other works.
Yes, anyone else?
Yes. Just a supplementary question.
Yes, of course.
We can't stop publication of books, but we can monitor the content of the book. It can't carry wrong content, erroneous content. That's very important. That is not happening.
Yes, the gentleman here in the red shirt. Is taraf, please. Then we'll come to Mr. Panda after that.
Thank you. I am Braju Mishra. I am involved in micro level study at district level. We found, it's why the enrollment in government schools are declining. So we did a study that in the last 5 years, some 25 to 35% there has been the decline of the enrollment in the government schools, and so naturally they have gone to the private schools in and around that area. So private schools where there are infrastructure, there are classrooms, they go, there are no classroom or 2 rooms, they are also crowded. Whether they have infrastructure, it is crowded. Infrastructure is not there, it is also crowded. So that is we are talking about the equity. What is at the end of the day in the elementary school, the fundamental requirement is 3R. We talk generally. What is reading, writing and arithmetic. So that is not being given at the government school, or, so that's something.
What is your question, sir?
Our question is why that, how to address that, the decline in the government school. And then equity, we are talking about how many people can afford to send their children to the private school, if we talk of the equity.
the equity in terms of addressing the issue, if the government, today's context, the government trying to see that how to let the education go to get the privatized means the less investment from the government department side, So the education need taken care by the parents themselves. That is how the trend shows that last few years. It is happening like that. If the government takes a firm a stand that the government is a welfare state, the country is in a welfare country, welfare state kind of thing. It is government responsibility to make sure that to provide good quality education for all of its citizens, children in the country. From that point of view, so you should never think of the from financial point of view allocation, kind of thing. If government comes forward that I wish to, that means respect to state government, I wish to say that I wish to make sure that every child in this particular state and kind of thing get good quality education, for which whatever support is required from government side, either in terms of the infrastructure, teacher adequacy, the facilities like libraries and labs, or sports facilities, or textbooks, or training programs, whatever you say that, assessments kind of thing, it can take the proactive step and kind of thing. There is no need of migration of children to the private schools, So here your migration, those who are affordable, they are migrating. Those who are not affordable, they are not migrating. They are there. But whatever is there, there is no other alternative for them. And that's why, since there is no alternative for them, they are there. So it is the ultimate, they are the sufferers. The children are sufferers, not by anybody else. Down the line, next 5 years or 10 years time, they miss the bus in the sense they didn't get the right quality of education, they didn't get motivated, and they get drop out, and they settle down with the mediocre things what they're available in their own environment kind of thing. Again, the country can't progress it, The shape of the country decides in the classrooms what we are said that. So unless until government take a firm stand on that, invest for the education, the nation can move. And the equity you're talking about, it ensured, especially for the less privileged you're talking about.
Right. There was a gentleman right here on the second table. On your... Acha, why don't you?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Bharti. And thank you for this insightful discussion. Mr. Banuri pointed out about localized accountability, and Dr. Reddy also talked about participation of community or the parents in the school management and, pedagogy and everything. Very rightly, Rukmini ma'am discussed about participation of parents. So my question is that given the situation of government schools and the children coming there and their families' status, socioeconomic status, how far the community is, prepared to participate? Are they prepared enough? Do our NEP has a space where we also talk about, empowering the community in terms of what should be there in the school and where is the space we have created for the community? SMCs, we have been advocating since ages, and I don't see very good progress in terms of children's education and skill building participation. Fine, infrastructure wise, all the projects, monitoring and all that, SMC is quite good, and of course they're monitoring the teachers' attendance in many cases. So SMC role is very detailed out, but how far, given the parents whose child is coming for 4 years, 5 years or 3 years to a school, how far they are, prepared enough, and where is there a space in NEP where we talk about all this?
एक 4-5 साल पहले I was in Nandurbar, one of the most remote districts of Maharashtra, tribal areas, and parents का ऐसे सभा चल रहा था, तो उसमें पूछा गया कि बच्चा क्या करता है, स्कूल में क्यों नहीं है? तो उसने उठ के बोला, सर मेरा बच्चा पहली से 7वीं स्कूल में पढ़ रहा था. After 7 years, he was not able to. I asked him to read a line in the newspaper. He wasn't able to read. तो उसको मैंने निकाल के फिर उसको खेती में काम लगवा दिया. मैं 7 साल का अभी जो 7 years का मेरा जो वक्त गया है उसको करने में, उससे तो अच्छा वो मेरे से इतना महीने में 2000 रुपए कमा लेता. Now the reason why parents are disinvested in any school, the onus is back on the school to provide quality education. till the time they continuously, what is the incentive for a parent to send a child inside a school? If the parents started realizing that it is not value enough for my child. SMCs, all of these are structurally, again as I said, policy लिखा रहता है कुछ. अभी भी government school में जाओ SMC है बोलते हैं, everything is there, right? But historically, there's enough research and data that says that wherever SMCs are strong, the learning outcomes at a, not even at a school, at a district level are strong. I can talk about just Maharashtra, your entire Paschim Maharashtra, which is Sindhudurg, Ratnagiri, all of these, SMCs are perhaps the strongest there. We're extreme, like in fact, there is a room call for an SMC Adhyaksh. बैठता है सुबह आके 10 बजे बैठते हैं 3-4 घंटे रहते हैं and then they go. The learning outcomes in 10th grade results in Assar, every other survey that has happened in Maharashtra, those 4 or 5 districts where SMCs are strong always stand out in learning outcomes, right? So we need to prove that this is possible, and only because of parental investment is where schools and the parents need to start demanding that quality education. So I feel it's a combination. You were asking, are the parents ready to be empowered? I am saying, are we ready to be putting ourselves out there? And when I say we, I mean teachers, school systems, and everyone supporting this, to be able to sort of empower the parents. I still think there is, people are still scared. सारे parents आ जाएंगे तो फिर क्या होगा? फिर हमारे, कुछ तो डर है, कुछ तो अंदर से है. That we need to remove for the teachers. And once that is removed, obviously, automatically, who doesn't like to be? Imagine if you, I'm sure most of our children study in the schools. Why wouldn't we? And especially in a village context, village के अंदर शाला रहता है, school village के अंदर रहते हैं. They would love, they're an integral part of community building exercise. So I feel it's more on the inverse side that we need to look is what my I might be wrong, but I think that's my opinion on this.
Hello. Long back, one journalist asked Dr. Radhakrishnan as to what is the comparison between a station master and a schoolmaster. Dr. Radhakrishnan replied, a station master minds the trains, whereas a schoolmaster trains the minds. But we have a feeling that the teachers are not real trainers of minds so far. Is there any specific steps being taken by the authorities for training them to be real trainers of minds? That is my question.
Actually, we have initiated a very good in-service training program. You can sit down, sir. बैठ जाइए. We have initiated a very good training program. Actually, when this policy, that draft policy was submitted, and keeping in view the recommendation of the draft policy, we introduced a training program. You might be knowing NISTA, National Initiative for School Heads and Teachers Holistic Advancement. And our proposal was to conduct this experiment for 42 lakh children of the elementary level. And we did that. In Odisha also we launched this program. Because of the COVID, the training program was conducted online, but the training of the master trainers were conducted through face-to-face mode. We have launched this program in all the states of the country. And why I am emphasizing this, what we have done, it is not a traditional teacher training program, because as per the recommendation of the policy, that our affective domain is totally neglected. All the time we help our children to secure good mark in the exam, and how to develop the socio-personal quality. That is why in that module, the training program, we have kept one module for the development of socio-personal qualities, and other things, the RT and all the new initiatives we have taken into account, and how we will make the classroom more process-oriented, keeping in view the learning outcome. All these we have taken care of, and we have, through face-to-face mode, we completed around 19 lakhs teachers, and the rest we are provided training through online mode because of the COVID situation. It is not that we are not doing anything, but ultimately it depends on the teachers. If we don't have the attitude to teach, if we are not motivated, then no training will help. So if our teachers are motivated, then definitely they can bring about change, because this policy, when we are talking about the policy can be implemented only through the teachers. That is why Government of India is thinking of providing training to all categories of teachers across the stages. And that is why now government that it has come that technology, how technology can be integrated, another NISTA program on technology integration. So for this foundation stage, another NISTA. So that it is in the process. But ultimately, we have to come forward and we have to join hands together. Because we have adopted one block in Meghalaya. In Meghalaya, we visited, we didn't find a single teacher school. And we asked what is the reason, but in Rajasthan and other states, we have single teacher school. Then they suggested, they said that no, we don't have single teacher because whenever there is vacancy, school heads appoint the teacher. The community appoint the teacher. So then ultimately community has to take the responsibility, and only if you depend on the government, then nothing will happen. And we have to come together and we have to strengthen school-community relationship.
No, I just want to add to what Sinapati had already said. I think the more, so I taught in a government school for a couple of years. So I know, for those of you who've been teachers, you understand the pros and cons. So having experienced of being a teacher in a government school in Pune, the more and more I think teachers don't need training. I think what they need is coaching. And that is what we often forget. There is no incentive for a teacher to be trained. शिक्षक क्यों सीखे? आप बताओ ना. Give me 5 good reasons why a teacher should learn. आप हर चीज बच्चों, अच्छा बच्चे सीखेंगे, बच्चे भविष्य वगैरह ये सब sentimental के ठीक है. शिक्षक क्यों सीखे? I don't think we have cracked the incentive. Why should there is an incentive for teachers to learn? Doctors का भी license होता है हर 5 साल में. Teachers का ऐसा नहीं है. आप बंद करवा दो, बोलो कि हर 5 साल में हर टीचर को एक टेस्ट लिखना पड़ेगा, फिर देखो क्या अप्रोर मचता है. It's not going to happen. So I think and they need coaching. ऐसे नहीं कि टीचर को नहीं पता है भाषा गणित कैसे पढ़ाया जाता है. You think it's hard to achieve these निपुण भारत goals? मतलब 3 साल के बाद बच्चा सेकंड ग्रेड का पाठ्य पुस्तक नहीं पढ़ सकता. हो ही नहीं सकता. हर टीचर तो 10वीं पास है. So where is that? It means you need some coaches to be able to. So I feel the more and more we think about it, I think teachers need coaching and not training. That's why overall capacity building should be focused more on coaching, and that's why I call blended in a way.
Yeah, so to add to what has been said, from a teacher's point of view, because I've been a teacher my entire life till now, I mean, I'm in a different role now, but I've been a teacher, and from a teacher's point of view, I think थोड़ा सा हमें ना अपने teachers को trust करना भी सीखना है. Because, you know, we listen a lot about, you know, teachers ये नहीं कर रहे हैं, वो नहीं कर रहे हैं, ये नहीं कर रहे हैं, ऐसे नहीं कर रहे हैं, but we also need to give them, do they also have the space to be creative in their teaching process? हम उनको curriculum पकड़ा देते हैं, lesson plan पकड़ा देते हैं और बोलते हैं कि ऐसे कैसे करना है, इसको पढ़िए और इसको करिए. But as a teacher, I need some creativity. I need some freedom of expression. I might think of doing the same thing in a different way. So that creativity and that freedom also, that space should also be provided to the teacher, and then only the teacher can provide that space to the child. So it's a continuous cycle. So somewhere that component of teachers' creativity and freedom also should be kept in mind when we are talking about, discussing about these things.
Right. There was a gentleman at the back. Yes, please.
Yes. My question is, when we have the right to education for the small section of the society.
Can you hold your mic closer, please? We can't hear you.
My question is, when we have the right to education.
Mic ऊपर कर दीजिए, please.
My question is, when we have the right to education for the small section of the society, class 1 to class 8, why we are focusing more on the new education policy, rather we expand the rights to the preschool to the 12th standard of the children? And when the right to education, we are not, in Odisha only 17% schools are compliance with the right to education. We are not focusing to ensure the right of the children, which we are given in the rights. But we are more focusing on the new education policy, which is the obligation, and how we ensure that when we are not provide the rights to the children when he or she has the rights, and how we will be ensure that the new education policy will be fulfill the gap of the education of the children. And another question is we are more focusing on the minimum level of the learning up to the class 3 children. Why not all the children will be teach in the minimum level of the learning and achieve their minimum goal? We are more focused in the Nipun Bharat mission. We are more focused on the how the fundamental numeracy and numeracy
Right.
and the fundamental
Yeah.
literacy
Nilima, would you like
for
to-
the
Yeah.
class 3 only.
So,
in another
I just want
Okay,
to
sir,
understand.
let's
I want
answer
to
these,
understand
please.
the question. So you're saying we should not include early childhood education, preschool, 1 year of preschool in
I
RT?
am telling
Are you
early
saying that?
education, that's why I am asking for the why the rights start not from the preschool to the 12.
So it is there now part. The National Policy of Education now has, after so many years, we as an early childhood person, we have been asking for this, that 1 year of preschool education at least should be mandatory.
I understand.
Yes.
I understand.
And
It is very much
also,
essential
also in the recent World Conference on Early Childhood Care and Education, which was held in by UNESCO in Uzbekistan, this is one of the declarations that member states have made, and India being part of it, we are also part of it, that 1 year of preschool education is important, as part of the education process. So I don't understand where the dichotomy
No,
is.
I am not disagree with the preschool is the not required. That's why my question is the why right to education not expand from the preschool to class 12. That's why my first question.
Yeah. So and
another,
also, no, it is important. And regarding the class till class 3, so now Nipun Bharat is talking about foundational literacy and numeracy. The importance of having, because we know कि अगर हम गणित पढ़ना चाहते हैं या हम history पढ़ना चाहते हैं, तो we are not talking about, we need to have a certain amount of foundational skills, emergent literacy skills that we have. So Nipun Bharat is very rightly focusing on these foundational literacy and numeracy skills to build a very strong foundation for our children to learn in the later years.
Thank you. I think we have just time for 2 more questions. Okay.
I will ask because last 40 years I have been working in the civil society. Always I am asking this question to me and I am unable to get the answer. Question is, I have seen in Odisha, most of the government primary schools teachers are well trained. They are either intermediate plus CT, BABD, MA. But most of the teachers, they are sending their children to the private schools. What could be the reason? Either they have lost their trust on them or something else. If any one of you from the panel can give the answer.
I think so. It's just safe to say that we should tell all educationalists that wherever you teach is where your child should go. That would solve the problem. Let me take one last question. Maybe someone from this side. Yeah,
Excuse me.
please.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. And my question is, so we are here talking about the quality of education in private institutions are better, and in government institution it is quite lower. I think we are talking about this. So my mother is a government educator, government teacher. So I have seen that there are a lot of more overwork that are given to the teachers beyond the teaching process, and there are a lot of work that they do beyond the teaching, and now also there are new apps that they have to learn, and they have to process so many things, and they have to work at nights too. So my question is that I just want to say one thing, that it is not that the quality of the teachers that are bad in the government school, it is just that they don't get enough time to cultivate themselves to tackle the school and tackle the students in the school and tackle the process to teach the school, and that's it.
Okay.
And we are blaming the teachers that they are not getting, they are not providing quality education. That's why students.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Okay, I really do need to close this now. We're totally out of time. So I want to thank my panelists for a very insightful discussion. Basically, to sum it up, to transform the education system, educators need to be equipped. To achieve equity in education, we need political will, role of middle management, and localized solutions. Everyone in the system must be accountable, they must get support, and they must be motivated. And for education collaborations to be trust-based is what will lead to success. With those takeaways, I think I will close this session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, dear panelists, for this insightful. Thank you, eminent panelists, for the insightful discussion and for the audience interaction. It was outstanding, and that shows us like we all are interested in quality education, and we have a great future ahead together. Thank you. Now, may I invite on stage Ms. Uma Seth, Senior Director and Head CSR, Diversity and Inclusion from FICCI. Ma'am, you would like to present the mementos to the panelists, so please. And photographs. Dr. Y. Suresh Reddy, please. Round of applause for Dr. Reddy, please. Lead CSR and Director, SRF Foundation. And then we have Dr. Nilima Chopra, Lead Early Childhood Care and Development, HCL Foundation. Thank you, ma'am. Sorry. Ipshita, come fast. Professor Hushike Senapati, ex-director NCRT. Thank you, sir. And then we have Mr. Madhukar Banuri, founder and director of Leadership for Equity. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you. And we'd like to capture the moment with a group photograph, please, ma'am. Just with a group photograph. Ma'am, vote of thanks by Ms. Uma Seth.
Thank you so much. And I really am honored, and thank you for proposing this vote of thanks to our very esteemed speakers and our moderator, Shefalika ji, today. I think what was very interesting today is that in our 2 hours of discussion, we talked about, I think, everything related to education, and right from, the NEP, and I think Professor Senapati mentioned that, we got the new policy after 30 years. It took 5 years in the making, and hopefully we should be able to implement it by 2030. And so many points that came about, and I think we covered all ground, right from why it is so important for all stakeholders to be equally motivated and concerned, whether it is the training of teachers or bringing in the technology or taking all our communities and stakeholders together, because very rightfully how it was said that, every 50 kilometers the dialect changes. So, implementing the NEP for a country like ours is a huge challenge. But with, I think, very many motivated individuals and organizations, we do see that to make our children, future skill ready, future job ready. We at FICCI, of course, we are an old industry chamber. We represent various sectors of the Indian economy, and education definitely is one strong pillar. With our committees on not only school education, but also higher education and university level education. We work very closely with policy makers, civil society organizations, academics, and experts to bring about the change that we need to see on ground. I would like to thank all our speakers today, from Dr. Reddy to Dr. Nilima, Professor Senapati, and Mr. Basuri here today, Mr. Banuri, sorry, and also Shefalika ji from the Bansidhar and Ila Panda Foundation, for putting IDEATE together every year, and FICCI is really honored to partner with you to bring, topical issues that we discuss every year. And this year, of course, I think after 2 years of COVID, we were able to, do this physically and not virtually. So I think that brings a big relief, and it's really wonderful to interact with everybody here. And we promise you of our continued support for any further discussions. And of course, I also take this opportunity to thank all our participants to have physically come here and ask some very pertinent, pointed questions, which are again very thought-provoking. I know we don't have the answers for all of them, but these are thoughts that we take after this discussion, and hopefully it reaches the right stakeholders. So thank you so much for participating, and thank you for this. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your presence over here. You may please join us for lunch at Tulip Hall. Thank you.